Hello everyone, this is Courtney again, and I am getting ready to make a mess. I already made a mess just trying to get ink in, or chalkboard paint into my tray. But like I always say, I am a hot mess, but that's how I know I'm having fun, and I'm usually doing something crafty, so I'm always happy when that is happening. So last video I was talking to you about some of the ideas I had on how we can incorporate something similar to the Hello Spring decal set. So these are 2 3/4 inch templates, basically these decals for you to be able to put on there. So I came across a couple ideas. So doing a chalkboard cube or something of a folder design, perhaps a garland idea that would allow us to feature a variety of these designs on one item. So instead of having to have lots of little things, why not one thing that encompasses all of that? So I was lucky enough to come across a pallet with a sled on it that had some large lumber, cut lumber on the bottom of it. I believe this is a yellow pine, and it is pretty lightweight and kind of perfect for what I was hoping to do. Now, this is definitely something you can go to the hardware store. They usually sell 4x4, I believe, lumber for that. You can get that cut down to size. I ended up getting this cut to a 3x3x3, just using a compound miter saw and a belt sander just to get it down to a generalized kind of finished surface. The pallet wood can be a little rough textured, so I at least got it to a smooth finish. The next step that I kind of would take with this is to get a small sanding block. This is just a piece of scrap wood that I've just taped some sandpaper to. You can use a stapler too as well. You can also pick them up at the hardware store if you want to pick up a sanding block. And I usually take the time to finish, it's kind of breaking the edges here a little bit, and put a nice finish. You always want to sand with the grain. So you want to kind of sand along the grain of the wood, so follow the lines of the graining that you see. And basically, I just like to break the edge on all of it so it doesn't feel like a sharp, rough kind of finish on the corners of this, especially depending on how you get it cut or where you're procuring your material from. If you're still leaving it pretty raw from your palette, that's fine. I do kind of like a softer, smooth finish for my my piece, and I'll do it on all the corners just to kind of get them cleaned up. And then over here to my side while I'm sanding, you will notice I have a few push pins. Those push pins are for me to keep my work, like the piece that I'm working on, from hitting the table or whatever surface I'm painting on while it's drying. So it's kind of like a little standoff, but you don't have to, spend a lot of money on, professional standoffs to be able to do that. You could just get a couple little push pins and have them kind of completed in that way. So I'm just going to take this across all the corners. I kind of want to have a more rustic kind of finish with the corners on there. Like I said, nothing sharp and pointy. I like it to look like it's had a little bit of wear and tear with it. So you might end up with a little bit of sawdust. That's absolutely fine. You do want to make sure though that your piece is completely wiped down from the sawdust. I'm going to take a little rag here, just wipe that down, since we're going to be applying some of the chalkboard paint to that. So I will do that. When I put these in, when I put the push pins in, I try to find the end grain. So the sides or faces here where you see the grain running straight up and down, I want those to be the faces that I put out. My end grain, you're going to be seeing the curves of the rings of the tree. So I kind of want to encourage going into that. It'll be a lot easier to put your standoffs in there. So I'm just going to kind of throw 3 little feet in here, just so that when I have this sitting here on my cardboard, I can let this sit and dry on the cardboard, and I don't have to worry about the paint running down onto the cardboard and then overnight it all drying together. And then when I pull this thing off, I'm going to be ripping cardboard, or if you wanted to set this on something else, you know, you're not having to worry about that sticking to your material. So we're going to, I'm a fan of using the foam brushes instead of a bristled brush for the chalkboard paint. I'm just not a big fan of the bristle, like the lines that you get from the bristles. So I'm going to begin with painting. I usually kind of dab to get some of the paint out of there. I like to load up my, my brush nicely and then just get a really nice thin coat. I try to do one thin coat and then move on to the next side instead of really loading it on very heavily. I'd rather just have it dry in between each coat pretty quickly. So you may still see some of your material peeking through underneath that, and that's absolutely fine. And another reason I like to paint it this way is that I can still hold the top and bottom while I'm working on this. Now, I know I'm going to get my fingers a little bit dirty because of time, and I want to kind of show you the finished product here. So I'm going to keep loading my brush and then turning to the next side and then kind of getting that on here. So we're going to get a couple more brush strokes on this. You do want to make sure that you're not going to get any runs with your work. So before I go on to doing the top face, I like to go back to the others and just gently run. There's a little run there. I like to smooth my brush over the faces just a little bit, dragging it upwards very lightly so that I don't have any mess and drips, because I want to have a really smooth, clean surface to be able to put my templates on. So again, you'll find that the end grain here will soak in the paint a little bit quicker. So I'm going to put my hands under here and see if I can get that to stay nice and still. Probably should have put 4 standoffs underneath there, but I grabbed 3 out of the drawer. So there, once I get that all in there, I'm going to pull off all that excess, making sure to go back and run it along the seams now so that I really don't get any of those runs. Okay, so I'm going to probably let this dry for 3 to 4 minutes and just kind of let the outside not be tacky any longer, and then I will put a second coat on that as well. So like I said, I'm always a mess, but that's how I know I'm having a good time. My next video will be then, once this is all set. I usually like to let this set overnight just so that it gets completely cured and then firm. I'm going to apply the decals for the spring design that we talked about in my last video and kind of see where it takes us.